You're not here to waste time chasing love that feels like a dead sprint to nowhere. You're here because you're ready to stop playing games, throwing yourself at situations that never work, and accepting half-assed connections because you're too afraid of being alone. This isn't another guide filled with soft platitudes about meeting the one or romanticizing mediocrity. We're talking about building a relationship that doesn't just survive, it thrives. Period. That means cutting the bullshit, getting real and doing what most people have zero courage for. Showing up as the person your partner actually needs you to be, not the fantasy you've been conditioned to believe they should have. If you're still in the game of giving more than you have, settling for the bare minimum, or letting your insecurities mask themselves as passion, this isn't for you. But if you're finally ready to work on yourself, stop chasing emotions, and actually earn a relationship that demands respect, loyalty, and real connection, the kind that doesn't crumble under pressure, keep listening. Let's be real. Relationships don't fail because people don't try. They fail because people try half-assed, emotionally immature, and fundamentally unprepared to take responsibility. You've seen it before. Two people who dive in headfirst driven by chemistry, but delivering nothing more sustainable than a fireworks show that fizzles out. You've watched people give pieces of themselves away, act like emotional martyrs, and then act surprised when everything collapses around them. The truth is, you don't get to just show up to someone else's life and bulldoze through it with your chaos. Successful relationships demand something more: accountability, growth under pressure, and the strength to hold your ground when everything tries to knock you off balance. That's why this isn't just about love. It's about your ability to manage conflict, maintain self-respect, and step into the full version of who you're supposed to be. If you're tired of excuses, tired of settling, and tired of breaking other people's trust, because this pattern keeps repeating, then you've come to the right place. Let's start with the cold, hard truth. You are not the exception to the rule. You don't get to fall into a relationship and disintegrate everything else in your life, as if love should waterboard you into an identity crisis. If you've ever found yourself canceling on friends, ignoring responsibilities, or letting your entire existence orbit around someone else, you've already set the relationship up to fail. The first dynamic of a relationship that lasts: having a life outside each other. That means maintaining your passions, your commitments, and your growth. You show up as a fully formed person, not a half-baked construct built to impress someone. Because here's what happens when you don't. Emotional instability follows you like a shadow. If you've got nothing else going on, you'll cling, manipulate, and demand reassurance like a kid desperate for a parent's approval. And the second that person doesn't meet your expectations, you either freak out or ghost them, because you don't have the emotional muscle to handle disappointment. That unwind isn't them doing something wrong, it's you operating from a place of severe need. If you can't own your life, don't expect someone else to respect it. Dependence is a one-way ticket to suffocation. If your entire existence is loosely taped together by someone else's validation, you're not building a relationship, you're just building another excuse for failure. So here's what you start doing. Instead, commit to something beyond romance. Double down on your career, invest in your friendships, build a damn routine that isn't contingent on someone else showing up every morning. Condition yourself to be fulfilled independently. Be the guy or the woman who doesn't need constant reassurance, but instead commands presence. Relationships aren't built on codependency, they're built on strength. If your entire identity collapses without a pulse from your partner, you're not ready for anything long-lasting. The second you can look at your life and see that missing someone doesn't unravel you, that's when you'll know you're actually ready to sustain something real. You want a relationship that lasts? Let me stop you right there. Your emotional intelligence better outweigh your ego. Because if you can't take criticism without a meltdown, if you shut down, the second things get real. If your response to conflict is reactionary panic instead of strategic action, then you're not going to hold anything down. Relationships require resilience. Not the kind that takes a beating and stays put. Real resilience. The kind that processes pain in real time, sees the long game, and learns to act instead of just react. So let's talk about control. Not the manipulative kind. Most people try to control everything out of fear. That's what kills relationships. You don't need to control your partner. You need to control your emotional response to stress. That means the second you feel triggered, instead of jumping straight into blame, drama, or withdrawal, you slow down. You take stock. Think about the energy you're bringing into the room. The number of relationships that die because no one knows how to regulate their own damn emotions is staggering. One side freaks out about perceptions, the other shuts down because they don't know how to handle feeling like they messed up. It's a death spiral of miscommunication. But the root problem? No one ever learned how to hold their own in emotional combat. You don't want that. You want a relationship that elevates you? Then you have to separate ego from progress. If every piece of feedback feels like an attack, you're gonna exhaust someone. You're going to drive them to distraction with your fragility. Strong relationships thrive when people can step into honest conversation without fear, and that only happens when both sides can manage themselves in high-pressure moments. So ask yourself, do you get defensive when questioned? Do you catastrophize every disagreement? Do you sulk instead of engaging? That's not love. That's weakness, wearing a mask. But here's where true strength comes in. Real emotional resilience is also about amplifying what works. If you've got someone who lifts you up, who gives more than they take, who shows up with consistency, then no obstacle should be stronger than your combined effort. You don't need to change missed opportunities into deal breakers. You don't need to relive past trauma every time things get tense. You just need to act with purpose. Build immunity to bullshit instead of waiting for it to hit you. And understand this, the strongest relationships aren't built in moments of easygoing serenity. They're built in fire. Because both people choose to stay, face the challenge, and grow together instead of tearing each other apart, trying to out-survive their emotional clutter. Here's the brutal truth. If you run from conflict, you're running from relationship success. You don't get to build something real by pretending tensions don't exist. You don't get to grow a relationship by sweeping disagreements under a rug and pretending everything still lines up when you kick it aside. If you avoid confrontation too long, you'll either explode or implode. Either way, you end the moment you start lying to yourself about what's really going on. Conflict isn't the enemy. Silence is. Tension is not a sign of failure. It's a marker of growth. The moment a couple stops having honest conversations about the things that matter, they start dying on the inside. Nip that in the bud. Now you're not running away from hard conversations. You're stepping into them, eyes wide open, ready to solve problems instead of hoarding emotional time bombs that will inevitably detonate when you least expect it, but you better be ready for this. You won't survive meaningful conflict without respect as your foundation. You can't go into battle swinging without a moral code. You can't weaponize pain, throw out of context past mistakes, or start dragging up things from 3 years ago like a petty scavenger. Because if you keep that up, you'll grow ugly together, and you'll wonder why nothing works, when you've been spending years tearing each other apart. No, real conflict means honest, grounded, focused exchanges. You're not there to hurt. You're not there to remind them of every time they disappointed you. You're there to fix a problem, realign expectations, and move forward. Respect is the only thing that keeps it elevated instead of shredded into nothing. If you let ego take the wheel, if you go into a fight looking to win instead of understand, you'll end up with destruction instead of resolution. Nobody walks away stronger from a relationship that only knows howlers and breakdowns. You walk away stronger when you learn how to fight with depth instead of drama, when you address the core issue instead of just firing off emotion until something sticks. That's how you rise above the chaos. That's how you stop being just another casualty in a pile of failed relationships. Here's the cold, hard truth. You don't get to attach to someone just because you feel safe and comfortable. You build a future with someone who shares your vision, who aligns with the life you want to build. not just the one you passively drift through. You cut out empty convenience like you would cancer. Because if you don't, you'll wake up one day in a relationship that just exists. You'll stay out of fear, not commitment. You'll go through the motions out of habit, not purpose. That's not love. That's survival mode disguised as companionship. Your relationship is not a life raft. It's not a patchwork fix you put together because something in your life wasn't going according to plan. If you're hanging on to someone who isn't built for the same mission, you're not saving anything. You're delaying the inevitable. Relationships stop lasting the second you stop giving anything of real substance to them. So take a long, hard look at where you're at. Where are you going? What kind of life do you want? What standards do you refuse to compromise on? And does the person beside you share those ambitions? If they don't, if they contradict what you're trying to build, then you need to decide if you can reshape their trajectory with them or if you need to keep walking alone. If your shared goal is to be left alone in each other's presence, without having to grow or sacrifice, you're not building anything. You're just holding space for a slow erosion that doesn't have to happen. It's not about finding riffles in the current. It's about finding the person who can climb the mountain with you. If they can't push forward when battle hits, if they can't roll with the hardship required to build something strong, then they don't belong in your long-run cut the dead weight, because the only thing worse than being alone is being trapped in a relationship that refuses to rise with you. Most people chase relationships expecting someone else to fix them. They show up with a list of unspoken demands, masking their personal insecurities behind excuses and manipulation, waiting for someone to compensate for what they refuse to improve themselves. Here's the reality. No one owes you a role in their life if you're not doing the work. If your failures consistently stem from the same patterns, and your only response is to blame the other person, you're not ready for anything real, you're not building relationships. You're collecting reasons to stay broken. True accountability isn't about guilt. It's about confronting the truth and taking action. If you cheat on someone and convince yourself it was their fault for not making you feel validated, you're not healing. You're expanding the same rot that got you there. If you walk away from a failed relationship and justify it by saying you were never really serious, you're not protecting yourself, you're avoiding the lesson. And if you keep acting like you're incapable of change because you keep surrounding yourself with people who enable your weaknesses, then you're not in a relationship crisis, you're in a character crisis. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. A relationship built to last isn't dependent on flawless people. It thrives when two individuals show up, take responsibility for where they fall short, and work together to grow beyond it. That requires grit. It requires you to be the person who faces difficult truths instead of running from them. Because the kind of love that sustains isn't found in fantasy. It's forged in the fire of honesty, where both sides are willing to look themselves in the mirror, confront what needs to change, and do the damn work to fix it. If you're not ready for that, if you're still grasping for justification instead of taking ownership, then you're not ready for the real stuff. You're just holding space for something that's bound to end the same way. Communication is simple until you realize most people aren't actually good at it because they confuse honesty with emotional sabotage. You don't get bonus points for blurting out raw emotions without regard for timing, impact, or intent. Brutal honesty without purpose isn't courage. It's abuse dressed up as integrity. If you walk into a conversation loaded with accusatory energy waiting to tear someone down with your unfiltered frustration, you're not having a meaningful exchange, you're creating unnecessary warfare. And trust me, as soon as you turn communication into a boxing match instead of a bridge to understanding, you're not solving problems, you're making them worse. Real communication isn't about being right, it's about being effective. That means choosing your words with precision, avoiding needlessly aggressive language, and staying grounded even when things hit hard. It means understanding that tone sets the stage before the first sentence even drops. If you approach a conversation like you're defending your territory instead of seeking alignment, you're already on the wrong side of progress. Your rage won't make your partner see reason, it'll harden them into resistance. Your shutdown won't force them to chase after you, it'll teach them to quit trying. Mastering communication means developing discipline. It means learning how to speak with clarity instead of chaos. Don't spit out your frustration like it's a fire hydrant bursting open. Don't let every inconvenient truth knock you out of coherence. Don't confuse introspective panic with self-awareness. Instead, slow down. Think before you make your move and ask yourself, what is the message? Avoid using words as weapons. Don't let past trauma hijack the conversation. And above all, don't retreat into passive avoidance when things get tough. That's not communication. That's cowardice disguised as silence. Because let's be real, most people don't communicate, they default to emotional survival tactics. Men shut down. Women push harder. One side gives up, the other tries to dig deeper. But real dialogue? That's work. That's effort. That's learning how to say things that matter in a way that makes people actually listen. If you want a relationship that lasts, you have to show up with your shit together, instead of using communication as a battleground fueled by frustration and ego. Talk with purpose. Speak with clarity. Don't confuse honesty with cruelty, because honesty without direction isn't love, it's just damage disguised as transparency. The final note: hold tight or let go. You don't get to decide you want a relationship that lasts if you don't want to put in the work that sustains it. You can't want something real while still clinging to the emotional survival tactics that pull everything under. If you want a connection that doesn't crumble under pressure, you have to be the one who expands under the weight of responsibility instead of eroding with it. That means looking deep, getting uncomfortable, and being brutal with yourself instead of blaming the people around you. It means making the hard decisions instead of letting fear dictate your actions. Because here's the truth, relationships don't fail because people stop caring. They fail because people stop showing up as the version they need to be. They fail because one or both sides stop evolving and instead fall into old patterns of avoidance, blaming, and toxic comfort zones that do nothing but eat away at everything they built. If you want something that lasts, you have to stop waiting for someone else to fix it for you. You have to start showing up sharper, stronger, more confident, and more certain about who you are and what you want. Whatever excuses you've been feeding yourself about why things didn't work out, about why you can't find something better, about why love should be different for you, it's time to stop. You either get real or you keep spinning in circles. You either stop blaming the past and start earning the future, or you keep hoping for something that never shows up. You don't need another relationship. You need to actually be ready for the one you want. Own that. Do the work. And understand this: if you don't change, nothing else will either. If you're serious about lasting love, don't walk away from this video thinking you'll just figure it out later. Act. Commit. Start now. Don't wait for the right person if you're not actively becoming the right person to stand beside them. Expand or erode. That's the only choice that actually matters. Now go handle it. You don't get to wish. You don't get to hope. You get to do. Hard truth. If you're waiting for the right person before you start changing yourself, you're already disqualifying yourself. Because the only thing worse than being alone is being trapped in a relationship you're not prepared for. Start now. Double down. Build. Break. Repeat. If you want independence, stop orbiting someone else's life. Own your value. Grow your own damn fire. If you want emotional resilience, stop letting chaos hijack your growth. Master your responses before your emotions master you. If you want accountability, stop excusing the same patterns that keep burning everything down. This isn't a suggestion. This is a command. You either expand under pressure or you break under it. Your relationships aren't going to fix themselves. The people in your life aren't responsible for making you whole. That's your job. If you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same results. That pattern doesn't just fade away, it erodes. Level up. Show up as the version you need to be. The one who doesn't settle. The one who doesn't wait for love to save them. The one who builds something unshakable because they earned it. And if you want that, if you want to stop drowning in the same cycle, hit the like and subscribe button right now, because this isn't the finish line. It's the starting block. Let's go.